Unit 5, Lesson 4. Today we are learning about subtracting positives and negatives. So yesterday, or our last lesson, we learned about adding positives and negatives, and today it is subtracting. Our essential question for today is there a better way to subtract positive and negative rational numbers? So we are going to learn how to subtract, but are we going to find a better way, an easier one to do? Let's find out. Here we have patterns. It says finding more patterns in subtraction. And then I want to highlight this part right here. It says you can use parentheses to make problems simpler to read. All right, let's take this highlighted portion right here and go and teach you exactly what that means. Come down here to this one right here. This says 4 minus, and then you might not know what this is. It looks like a minus 1. So you can use parentheses around this part right here just to clarify that you are looking at -1. Now you don't need to have those parentheses. You'll see in the book that they are there. You'll see in this lesson that they are there. But on finding the patterns, you can add parentheses around the rear negative numbers. Now, if you don't need to, that's just fine. The front ones, let's look down here. See where I went with the red? That's -4. You don't need to put parentheses in the front because we know that that negative sign is in the front. We know it's a -4, not -4, because there is no number in the front of it. So we know it's a negative sign. All right. So that's what the parentheses are for. You can use them or not use them. You'll see that many times they are being used. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with this pattern. You can pause the video and find your own pattern. It's kind of fun, so you could try it. Pause now if you like, or continue on the journey here. 4 take away 0. That's a pretty easy one. That would be 4. 4 take away 1. That's easy. That's 3. 4 take away 2. 4 minus 3. And 4 minus 4 is 0. Just like our last lesson, we've created a pattern. It looks like the pattern going down is getting larger and the pattern going up is getting smaller. So what is 4 take away 5? It is -1. It's following that pattern. Let's go down now. What is 4 minus -1? Well, we can see the pattern. We have a 5. We're taking away a 5, then a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, a 0, then -1. So since the pattern's not being broken right here, and all the rest of it is the same, we can assume that 4 take away -1 would be 5. And 4 take away -2 would be 6. And 4 take away -3 would be 7. And the final one, 4 take away -4 is 8. Now you might be a little bit confused why that is. We will be learning about that in a little bit. But you can see the patterns are not broken. They are there and they are correct. So let's jump to the next column here and find something that is familiar to you. So we know that 4 minus 0 is 4. We know that 4 minus 1 is 3. 4 minus 2 is 2, and 4 minus 3 is 1, and 4 minus 4 is 0. So we can see a pattern going up. It's getting larger, and we can see a pattern of the front number being 4, and we see 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Now remember, you can put parentheses around these to make them look a little bit easier to read. You don't need to. Let's continue the pattern. 4 take away -1. We've already seen this one back over here. That is 5. 4 take away -2 is 6. 4 take away -3 is 7. 4 take away -4 is 8. And 4 take away -5 is 9. That pattern continued up. All right, so far we've studied subtraction of positives and negatives with the front number being positive. Now we're going to move over to the front number being negative. Okay, so let's find something that we are familiar with. Let's see. -4 minus 5. I'm not sure what that might be. So maybe -4 minus 0. Well, you're not taking anything away from -4, so it must be -4. Okay, what else can we find here? We know that we have patterns happening here. This is 0, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know this is -1, -2, -3, -4. So let's find out which way we're going to be going. So if we go up, we don't know right now if this is a -3 or a -5 right in this area. So what would it be? Well, -4, take away one positive. If you think about taking away positives, you would be going down on the number line, and that would be lower than -4, which brings us to -5. Now, that might be difficult to understand, but just keep your brain open, ready to learn. So -4 minus 2 would be -6. -4 minus 3 is -7. -4 minus 4 is -8. And -4 minus 5 is -9. Now you can see what's happened here. Look at these two. The answers to those two are 9 and -9. And look how similar they are. They both have 4s and 5s. They are both minus signs, and there's some negative signs, but they're in different places, and it produces different answers. So let's finish this column that we're working on. So we're going up this way, and the number was getting smaller because larger negatives are smaller. So if we're going to go down, their number is going to get larger. So -4 minus -1, which is really weird. -4 take away a negative would be less negatives, which would be -3. -4 take away 2 negatives from the -4, which will leave you with 2 negatives. -4 take away 3 negatives from the -4, which will leave you with -1. And -4 take away all of the negatives from there would be 0. All right, our last column, we have all negatives here, just like the previous column. And let's see if we can find something that is familiar to us. And you can see right here, -4 take away 0 is just like the one that we just did. That is -4. We have the answers over here. Look at this one right here. -4 take away -4. Well, if you have 4 negatives and you take 4 negatives away, you would have 0 negatives. And that's this one right here. And look at this gap between these two. That'd be a -1, -2, -3. So that pattern is complete. So -4 minus -3, you take 3 negatives away from the 4 negatives, you have 1 negative left over. 2 negatives away from the 4 negatives, you have 2 negatives left over, and take away a -1 from the -4, then you have 3 negatives left over. So let's complete that pattern. As we go up past 0, this is forced to be 1. So -4 take away 5 negatives. Well, it doesn't have enough, and the answer is 1. Now that's a weird one to think about. So we'll talk about that later. And -4 take away 1 would give us -5, also a complicated one. -4 take away 2 would be a -6. -4 take away 3 would be a -7. And finally, the -4 take away 4 positives would be -8. All right, so there's some complicated problems in subtraction, and we're going to have to look at them a little bit carefully so we can know what is happening. This next section is a we do, and this is where you're really going to learn what subtraction is all about and how to make it easier. So this is the time to really dig in and ask questions of your teacher, even rewind the video and watch things that might be confusing to you. You can pause, let your brain just soak it in, and find out what you don't understand and what you do understand and get those addressed. All right, so we are in subtracting integers, and this line up here is the additive inverse. You may have heard that in elementary school, but likely you did not. So additive inverse property makes subtracting integers a lot easier. All right, so this is how it works. This is the universe of 0, which you guys are very familiar with, where we're going to be using it to subtract. You can see up here we have positive 4, and then we have minus positive 7. So inside the circle, there are already loaded 4 positives. Do you see them? 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to take away 7 positives. But when you look inside the circle, the universe of 0 circle, there are not enough positives to take away. So we need to add more positives. Well, if we add more positives, we no longer have 4 inside the circle. So what types of numbers can we add? We can add the universe of 0. We can say, you know what? I need 3 more positive signs. Well, I don't want to change the value of 4, so I add 3 zeros. Okay, so now my 3 zeros are there, and now I can see that there are 7 positive signs. I'm going to take 7 positive signs away. So I can take this one away, scratch them out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What is left over inside the circle? There are 3 negatives. So up here we write equals -3. So 4 take away 7 positives leaves you with 3 negatives. All right, the next one. These parentheses come into play. It looks very confusing up here. Look at this. 4 minus, does it say 4 minus -7? Or does it say 4 negative -7? Or what does it say? So what we do is we put parentheses around that so it looks like this down here. So it's less confusing. So that's why we have those parentheses. All right, so let's take a look at this one. We loaded the circle with 4. And since we have 4 positives in there representing the first number, we're going to take away 7 negatives. But you can already see the problem. There are not 7 negatives inside there. Now we do not want to change the value of the 4. So we want to keep 4 as 4. So if we need negative signs in here, we have to go back to the universe of 0 and add 7 zeros. Why 7? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 zeros. We added 7 zeros because now there are 7 negative signs inside the circle. So what we'll do here is we will take away, right here it says take away the 7 negatives. Okay, let's do that. Take it away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what's left over in the circle? There are 11 positives, and that's the answer. 11. All right, this next one, we're starting off with -4, and inside the circle you can see 4 negatives. And then it says to take away 7 positives, and you see that there are no positive signs in there. And you already know from the last 2 examples that we do not want to change the value of -4, so we have to insert zeros from the universe of 0. How many zeros do we need? Well, we're looking to take away 7 positive signs. So let's do 7 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we are taking away 7 positive signs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what do we have left over? We have 11 negatives, negative 11. And the last one is one of those crazy ones to read. -4 minus -7. So we use parentheses on the back numbers, -4 minus -7 to make it look cleaner. And -4 has already been populated into the universe of 0. And we are looking to take away 7 negatives. All right, well, there are 4 negatives inside there, but that's not enough. We need 3 more. So how many zeros do you think we ought to add? I hope you are thinking 3. Okay, now there are 7 zeros. I'm sorry, 7 negatives inside there to take away. So we'll take away 7 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there are 3 positives left over. So the answer is positive 3. All right, that's using the universe of 0. And I want to show you something that's called the additive inverse property now. And I would like you to really hone in on this because it's going to make your life way easier. Okay, so what is this additive inverse thing? Well, it's 2 parts. Okay, when you see a subtraction sign, all right, you're going to make it into an addition sign. And then the number after that addition sign, you're going to do the inverse of it. So the inverse of 7 is like the opposite. What is the opposite of 7? -7. So what did we do here? Well, we changed the sign. We made it into addition. And then we did the inverse. Okay, that's a 2-step process. So we made the subtraction sign into addition. And then we did the opposite, the 7 into -7. That's the inverse. All right, so you've seen these from our lesson in adding integers. 4 plus -7, who wins? Well, you have more negative signs than you have positive signs. Remember, you can use the universe of 0. You could use the t-chart. Or you could just do it logically. So 4 are positives. 7 is negatives, and we bring this over and we subtract, and it's 3, and we are on the negative side. So the answer is -3. All right, so we'll do this again, additive inverse, because the subtraction signs, it's tough to do. So additive inverse. It's a 2-step process. You change the subtraction sign into addition, and then the inverse of the number that follows it. So what is the inverse? The opposite of -7? +7. Well, that made that hard problem 4 take away -7 for your brain into a very easy one for your brain. 4 plus 7 is 11. Okay, come down here. Here's our subtraction sign. So we're going to make that into addition, first step, and then inverse, second step. So additive, and the inverse of 7 is -7, the opposite. All right, negatives plus negatives gives you more negatives, just like our last lesson. That's pretty easy. You can use a t-chart. They both go on the same side, and they are all negative, so you add them together. Our 11 is on the negative side, so it's -11. And our last one, additive inverse. Go to the subtraction sign, make it into an addition sign, and then do the inverse of -7, which would be +7. So here you can see that we have more positives than we have negatives. We are adding them together. And so you know the addition is going to be the winner. Now you can use a t-chart here. Put the negatives there, the positives here, bring them across, subtract, and we have 3 on the positive side. All right, before we move on to the next part, I want to call your attention to something that we never touched using the additive inverse. Using the additive inverse, we did two things. We did additive inverse, and that was additive inverse, additive inverse, additive inverse, and additive inverse. Now, what did we never, ever consider touching? The front number. We did not even do anything to it. We left it alone. So go to the subtraction sign, change the subtraction sign into addition, and then do the inverse of the number after it. All right, the nice thing about additive inverse is, look at this. We get the same answers when we use it. So that's why it's so nice. All right, let's take a look at this one. Use the subtraction problems above for the T-charts and number line. Okay, so we have subtraction signs, subtraction problems above. Okay, this one was 4 minus 7 up there, 4 minus 7 at the top. So let's do that. So does subtraction with positive negatives work with T-charts and number lines? Well, let's try the first one, 4 minus 7. So 4 over here minus 7. What are we going to do here? If we move this across, and we subtract it, we would get 3. And that one worked. What about the next one? 4 take away, I'm looking at right up here, 4 take away negative 7. So 4 is a positive, take away negative 7. You would bring this across and subtract. No, we would have to add all of a sudden. Over here we subtracted, and over here now we have to add to get the right number. That doesn't make sense, because when we cross that line, we're used to, it just doesn't seem like it's working very well. Like one way it's one and another way it's another. So it looks like T-charts aren't going to be very helpful when we are subtracting. They only help when you are adding. Thank goodness for the additive inverse, right? All right, let's check the next one. 4 minus 7 on a number line. So go to 0. And here we start at 0. And it says go to 4. So go to 4. And then take away 7 positives. So we do not want to go forward. That would be adding positives. We want to go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we arrived at negative 3. That works. Our next one was 4 minus negative 7. Let's try that one. So start at 0, go out to 4. Take away 7 negatives. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, if we go to the left, that would be adding more negatives. You're getting more and more negatives. So to take away negatives, we're going to have to keep going away from the negatives, because we don't want negatives, we want positives, which is kind of weird to think about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And where did we arrive? At 11. That makes sense. All right, a little tricky. Let's try the next one. Negative 4 minus 7. So we start at 0. And we go out to negative 4 directly. Okay, then we take away positives. Well, if we went to the right, we would be adding positives. So to take away positives, we're going to continue going away from the positives. So 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're at negative 11, which is true. So it looks like the number line is helpful, although you have to set it up. Negative 4 minus negative 7. So start at 0, go out to -4, and take away 7 negatives. Well, if we keep going to the left, you can see that we are adding negatives. So we want to take negatives away, so we need to go the other direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're at 3. So it looks like the number line, this, works quite well with subtraction. But you know what works even better? Additive and inverse. All right. Let's go ahead and go down here. And this is the you-dos. Are you for or against the additive inverse? Have you made up your mind yet? Eventually, you will give in and use it because you'll find it's way easier. So on these, we have circles, and I would like you to try the circle here. Now, if you're already a big time additive inverse fan, then you can go right away to it and go like this, additive. I'll just put AD and then inverse. Okay. You would do this, additive, then the inverse of 5 is -5. And you could fill this in here. 1, 2, 3, plus 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you don't have to deal with adding zeros ever with the additive inverse. Then you find your universe of 0, those, and the leftover is -2. All right, I'd like you to do B. You can use additive inverse, or you can do the subtraction way from the front. So, and I'd like you to do C, and then I'd like you to do D, and then stop. So pause the video and try those now. A, B, C, D. Do not do E. Pause now. All right, we are back. And you can see I finished off B, C, and D. And each time we're getting more and more signs inside those circles. And in fact, on D, I had trouble fitting everything in. So the circles are getting tight. Did you use additive inverse? Well, look at what I did. Did additive inverse, change the subtraction sign to addition, do the opposite of the number that's after it. Addition sign, opposite. Addition sign, opposite. And what did you see? I never touched the front number. Those are never touched. Okay. So you can see that the circles really work. They are helpful. They just take a lot of time and they get a little bit crazy. So in this big one, I did a bigger circle here for you because I knew you would need more room. This one right here is -58 minus -117. So would you like to start on that? There might be a few of you that want to, but many of you are going to be like, no, thank you. And so instead of using the giant circle, we're going to be using the additive inverse. Okay, so we go straight down to the subtraction sign. We make it into an addition sign, and then we do the inverse of -117, which is +117. Okay, so we use the additive inverse. Now we're going to flip over to the T-chart. Way more easier to handle than drawing 58 negatives and 117 positives. So the 58 negatives go on the negative side. The 117 positives go on the positive side. There are more positive signs than there are negative signs, so these are going to go over and subtract. So 117 minus 58. I'll have to do some borrowing. So it looks like the answer is 59. That's way easier than drawing out all of those signs. So the T-chart for the win when you're using additive inverse. The T-chart for the win when you're dealing with adding integers, positives and negatives. So here you have all the T-charts now. And so I'd like you to pause the video and I'd like you to do F, G, H, and I. So I'll highlight those for you. Do F, G, H, and I. Make sure you are using the additive inverse to make your life easier. Pause now. All right, we are back, and all the answers are here. We have 42, 106, 67, and negative 836. So did you do the additive inverse signs correctly? Did you not touch the front number? Remember, that is not a part of additive inverse. All right, we change our subtraction signs into addition and then do the opposite behind it. All right, so now we have some rational numbers. So we have decimals and fractions. Pause the video and try J, K, L, and M. Pause now. Okay, here you have J, K, L, and M. I'd like to bring your attention to K. It is a fraction. We did do additive to the subtraction sign, and then we did the inverse to the positive 4/5, made it into a negative 4/5. Our denominators matched, so that's a good thing. That's good. And so what we do is we add our numerators, 2 plus negative 4. And in the t-chart, you can see me doing 2 and negative 4. And so it came out to be a 2 on the negative side. So I completed as negative 2/5. So the rest of them, maybe we'll talk about M down here. We have some zeros out in the ones place. And so your answer also has a 0 in the ones place when we're dealing with decimals. You got to have a number there. All right, so that is that. And now we have this, try this one in the margin over here. So turn your paper sideways. It says, when x is 3 and y is negative 8, what is x minus 3 and y minus x? All right, let's set this up. It is saying that x is 3, so we'll put an x right here. And y is negative 8, so we'll put a y right here. And we'll do each of these. We'll make parentheses for the x minus y equals. That's our first one. X goes in the first parentheses. X is 3. And y goes in the second parentheses, and y is negative 8. And so if you use additive inverse, then you'll see that 3 plus 8, it makes it way easier. It is 11. Now let's try the other one. This is y, so we'll do parentheses for the y, minus x, parentheses for the x. So y goes first. Y is our negative 8, and x is our 3. So we'll use additive inverse here on the subtraction sign, and the inverse of 3 is negative 3. So that made that problem, that difficult problem, into an easier one. Negatives plus negatives gives us more negatives. So that's going to give us 11 negatives. So it does make a difference when they change positions in subtraction. They do not have the commutative property. All right, so that's there, and that's something important to know for the future. Hint, hint. And also down here, this is your test readiness check, right? Test readiness check. And so what's happened here is we've developed some problems that are very similar to what's going to be on the test. And so we're going to have you pause the video and try these out. Now you can go back and look at notes from your past lessons, which is just fine, or just try them on your own. Pause now. All right, that took some time. I'm sure you had to put a lot of thinking power into that. So let's take a look at N, the very first one of the test readiness. It says select all the expressions that show the distance between point C and D. So here's point C and D. So we know what is the distance from here. We know that distance is always positive. So no matter which way you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, it is 4. So you're looking for problems here, expressions that equal 4. So I went through and I used additive inverse on all subtraction signs. And I started peeling my way through an A, additive inverse. 2 plus negative 6 could be in a t-chart and give me negative 4. Negative 2 plus positive 6 using additive inverse gives me 4. The absolute value minus the absolute value, I pulled it over here. I used gems to do the grouping symbols first, and 6 minus 2 was 4. Then I did 6 minus 2 right here again is 4. I did the additive inverse on D, and on C, it's already addition, so no additive inverse, it's all set up. Negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8. So on this one, there are 3 of them. B, C, and D are all equal to 4. Might want to practice that again, erase and try it. Let's look over to O. Find the difference, that means subtraction, between a California condor, how high it soars, and a hatchetfish, which lives in the California coastal ocean, Pacific Ocean. All right, so the California condor can soar at 3,518 feet, and the hatchet can swim as deep as, or has been found as deep as, negative 2,126 feet below sea level. Okay, so we set it up here. The condor is mentioned first, right here, and then the hatchetfish. So we put the condor first, and we find the difference, the subtraction sign, and then the negative 2,126 for the hatchetfish. We use additive inverse, not touching the front number, and that made that hard problem into a very easy one. Positives plus positives gives you more positives, 5,644. Sliding back over to P, we have a fraction, and our denominators do not match. So what we need to do is, what does 4 and 3 both go into? They both go into 12. So then 4 times what is 12? Times 3. So I put times 3 right there. So 3 times 3 is the top number, 9. On this side, I do 3 times what is 12? Times 4. So 2 times 4 is 8. That's the top number. Then we used additive inverse. See it right happening right here? I brought it down, additive inverse. I brought down all the symbols. Now our denominators match, so I add the top numbers. 9 plus 8 is 17/12. Right here. Sliding over to Q. We got a couple things going on here, so I brought out gems. Okay, we have a subtraction sign right here, so I use the additive inverse on it. And then I saw another subtraction down here, so I used another additive inverse on that one. And that just made a hard problem into a super easy problem. It's all addition. So in my T-chart, I stacked them all up, and I paid attention to 4, having no decimal point, so I know the decimal point is behind it, right here, and I added a 0. And then I lined up my decimal points and added them straight down and came up with 12 and 2/10. Now we're at R. The absolute value bars have returned, and we can see it's negative 3/5 minus 8. Well, the problem with that is we need to make them like denominators. 8 has a denominator of 1, and so you can see what I was doing here. I decided that I can make them both into 5s as denominators. That means the first one doesn't change, but we have a 1 here, and 1 times 5 is 5, so 8 times 5 is this top number, 40. I bring down the subtraction sign, and I added to inverse them, so I added to inverse down here. I keep this negative sign right here, don't lose that. And now it's negatives plus negatives gives you more negatives. So negative 3 plus 40 more negatives gives you 43 negatives. So now I have negative 43/5, but now I'm going to use the bars. And the absolute value of negative 43/5 is 43/5. And now S. This was packed for a room. I do apologize for that. Hopefully you did better with a pencil tip than you did with my pen here. So A minus B, I put parentheses for the A. like this, and for the B. And then I inserted what A was and what B is on the number line. Now, at first, I didn't know what these numbers were, but it did indicate that this was 0. And I know that the positives are to the right. I know the negatives are to the left. So I filled them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the opposite direction. I inputted these into the right parentheses. I use additive inverse. You see me doing that. And -4 plus 1 is -3. I did it again all the way down. -1, I did additive inverse again, is -4. And then I did it again, additive inverse. And then the last one, it's already a plus sign. So I don't use additive inverse. It's all ready to go. All right. So if I were you and you didn't understand some of those, you really struggled, I would try them again, maybe watch my little thing, or ask a teacher specifically, hey, I'm not understanding this. So to get those things cleared up, because these are test questions for your unit test. So let's make sure you know how to do those.